Right, hello, greetings friends. Today is Christmas Eve, so I'm going to do something slightly different. I've just got back from India, been at a conference for peace and non-violence, and hello to all my friends who I've just re-met in India, if you happen to watch this. This is me back in France, celebrating Christmas Eve, and I thought for something slightly different. I thought it's very important. I've got some important information for the UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. So I thought I'd ring him up and have a little chat with him. I've pre-booked the phone call. His staff, amazingly authorised that the talk will go through. So I'm going to record it. And let's see what he has to say. I can't, of course, record his words, sadly. But I'll, convey what he says. Okay, so let me just make the call then. Thank you so much. Yes, please. Yes, put me through to the Prime Minister. Thank you. It's Dr. Thomas Daffern speaking here. Yeah, we pre-booked it. Thank you. Yes, hello, Boris Johnson. Hello, yes, it's Dr. Thomas Daffern speaking. Thank you so much for finding the time to speak to me on this busy Christmas Eve. But I suppose you don't have many. No, it's a delight to talk to you. I've been hoping to talk to you for a long time. Actually, I should have rung before. I apologise. I never did. Yes, you do remember me. Okay. Well, look. Yeah, that's right. That was me. Yes. When you were Mayor of London, that's right, I sent you a long audio tape letter and your assistant kindly replied, yeah. Yeah, we didn't actually talk at the time, that was probably a mistake, no doubt you were very busy, but that's right, it was me that proposed. I still think it's a brilliant idea. I was teaching at the time as in secondary schools. I'd been head of RE, I taught for many years in London and I love London obviously. My parents are married there, they met and fell in love there. My degrees come from the University of London. Actually it was at, my first degree was at the School of Slavonic and East European Studies, part of the University of London, and and then my PhD came from the Federal University. Yes, one of the reasons I quite like federalism actually is because of London. It's a federal university. That's right, it's also the biggest university in the entire Commonwealth, so we ought to be very proud of it. And that's right, yes, my job when I graduated was to set up a Peace Studies Institute at the University of London. Yes, I still think it's a good idea, and I still think we should have such an institute. Yes, I'm sure you agree with me, don't you, that peace is pretty important in today's complex. And that's right, and we spend so much money on military stuff. I mean, millions for new tanks and bombs, but hardly anything, a few pennies here and there for peace. Well, I'm glad you agree. Yes, we do need a London-based peace research institute. Yes, and it should also be a degree-granting place. Yeah, we need to encourage brighter students to come forward and take an interest in peace. That's right. Yeah, and so that's why I wrote to you, actually. What I was proposing, if you recall, was we should have a gifted and talented track in universities, just like we do in schools. Yeah, you remember Tony Blair set up that thing, gifted and talented track in schools, and it was jolly good. As a teacher, my job was to spot talent, clever people, youngsters, and then give them extra work. Clever people like working hard. And so if you spot a brilliant mathematician or pianist or artist or poet or philosopher, then you give them extra stuff. Yeah, that's right, and it works very well in the British school system. Well, what I proposed, if you recall, is that we should do a similar thing in higher education. Because at the moment, too much of higher education is in the hands of what we could call the sort of mediocre paper pushers, the people that churn out little papers that constantly self-reference in little circles of, so-called peer group types, and no new thinking happens for generations. It's all just like a sort of cohort of armadillos all plodding along. And that's right, yes. So you and I are on the same page here. We do believe in individual genius, and therefore it should be spotted and encouraged and fostered. That's right, yeah, it was me. Yes, I proposed that. Yeah, you see, it's a shame you never got back to me and we didn't do it, because What I proposed, if you recall, I said, look, as Mayor of London, you had the power to do this within London. I suggested that as Mayor of London, you propose to all universities within Greater London, they set up a gifted and talented track for universities. That's right, including my University of London and all the others, Metropolitan University, Westminster. That's right, there's loads of universities in London. Well, I still think it's a brilliant idea, and I still think you should do it. And please don't, it should be done in a way that's way beyond politics. This isn't whether you're Conservative or Labour. No, yeah, that's right. One of my favourite colleges at the University of London is the Warburg Institute. I've spent many happy hours in there. That's right, you know it too. And that was a gift to the then Conservative MP who also gave checkers to the nation, where, you are able to go and have your, that's right, tete-a-tetes with foreign ministers and so on. Now that was an intellectual Conservative, the guy that helped welcome the Warburg Institute, because it was a private collection of a Dutch Jewish art collector who had, that's right, all these amazing symbols, pictures from European and world art traditions going right back to the Renaissance. Yes, it focuses, and you as a classicist know this, don't you? It focuses on the revival and survival of the classical motifs in art and intellectual life that came about during the miracle we call the Renaissance. Yes. Well, I'm a that's right, I like you because you're a Renaissance scholar, and so am I. I know your work is much more on the ancient stuff. Well, that's the problem, Boris. I'm not sure. You see, you should have done a degree at the Warburg. You should have realised that all that classical stuff you love actually came back in the Renaissance, and that was the gift of Europe to the world. That's right, Europe. Yes, of course. Leonardo da Vinci and all that. And my hero, John Dee. That's right. He was Britain's Renaissance scholar who went trundling off around Europe. Yes. Well, that's right. It's a sort of an open secret among scholars that we all love Europe. But that's right. No, the point I was making about the Warburg Institute is it's typical of the amazing kinds of intellectual resources we have in the UK. And in this case, it came from Europe. We welcomed it, and it was a Tory MP that set all that up. Bless him. That's right. So, look, culturally, well, what's my politics? Well, it's kind of, I'm with Nietzsche, who talks about gross politic. I believe in the politics of enlightenment, I have in front of me a dorje, which is a symbol of enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism. You don't know much about Buddhism. Well, it's a pity you've never come to my lectures, Boris. I taught in London for 10 years, that's right, when you were living there even. In fact, we could have, bumped shoulders, because you were living in Canterbury, weren't you, in Islington, 1993 onwards, roughly. And I was teaching in London. I had an office in Bloomsbury, that's right, at the Institute of Education. And my daughters went to the same nursery school as yours. Yes, isn't that incredible? Canterbury School, yeah. So for all we know, our daughters were at the same nursery. We might have picked them up on the parent run. That's right, yeah, I had a house in Liverpool Road just around the corner from Canterbury. Well, in Canterbury, just near the school. That's right, so isn't it a small world, really? And it's ironic, Tony Blair ended up living around the corner too. Yes, so our education, we've had similarities. I went to Brighton College. I know you went to Eton, but personally, I think Brighton College has done more for British, let's say, social cohesion. Well, where I went to school, we were taught that people of great genius and intelligence have a social duty to help share, and it was that sort of Christian Victorian idea that intelligence has moral responsibility. Yeah. You see, Boris, yes, I know that's the trouble. I think you, with all due respect, much as I respect your brilliance, I think, you've been too Americanized. You spent too long in the US. I know, and you were American citizen till 1990. I can't believe it. Yeah, you see, the American culture, much as I love it, and I'm not using the term American culture as a term of abuse, there is such a thing in pockets. But on the whole, it's quite a conflict-ridden society, and look at what's going on now, the polarisation between left and right, the impeachment of Trump. And although he's obviously broken the law, the people are going to, his diehards are going to stand with him. It's like the gunfight at OK Corral. Yeah, and something else, Boris, you might be interested in. Yeah, I'm a historian, right, like you, and I discovered that the American colony of what was then the British colony of the 13 colonies, yeah, we peopled it with lots of bandits and ruffians who learned to shoot here. They'd been sentenced to death, and we just shipped them off to the New World to get rid of them. That's right. And these people, that's the origin of the gunslinger. Did you know that? That's where this American OK Corral machismo comes from. Yeah, they were all the thugs and riffraff from the UK. Well, it wasn't UK, it was sort of England, and that's right. Yeah, we shipped them over there. Yeah, and then they kept moving west. That's right, during the American Revolution and stuff, which was a set-up job by Washington to try and pinch the land off the Indians. You do know that, don't you? Yeah, it's not taught really in the history books, except in Canada. You see, I'm Canadian. We've been watching what these USA people are up to for a long time. Basically, it's pinching Indian land they're up to. And now they're trying to pinch other land. And yes, Boris, you see, I don't know if you realise, but actually this whole Brexit thing, I want to get on to that in a minute. Yeah, no, that's why we need to talk. That's really the Americans trying to pinch our land. I mean, they've come, they're not happy with conquering. Yeah, that's right. It's kind of, England's going to be colonised on behalf of this US nonsense. Well, look, as a man of culture and learning, you really ought to be on the other side. I know, you nearly joined the other side. And it was only your rivalry with Cameron and internal politics of the Tory party made you jump ship and join the other lot. It was a fatal error, Boris. We need you back. That's why I'm talking to you in private here. I'm hoping to convince you you've made a gross philosophical error. But it's interesting. So our education was very similar. It's that I think I did more philosophy than you. I think probably at a pinch, you see, I did more philosophy. And I ended up working in interreligious stuff and theology and global philosophy over the years. That's right, and when I lived in Islington, I worked at the Centre for Multicultural Education at the Institute of Education. Yes, that's an education tradition where you try and get people of different cultures, faiths, ethnicities and so on to work together, and you try and find ways of resolving conflict instead of exacerbating it. So England, Scots, Pakistanis, Indians, Arabs, Jews, everyone, we should all kind of get on, and therefore we have to study each other's traditions. That's right, so that's where I started my PhD. I was working on attitudes to wisdom in all these traditions, and my then supervisor, Jagdish Gandhara, he was a very clever man, a Sikh. He'd been forced out of India by Idi Amin, out of Uganda by Idi Amin. Yeah, a nightmare that guy was, absolutely. So lots of these more liberal Indians ended up coming to the UK. Thank God we were able to give them home. And that's right, he was a teacher and also education advisor to Islington for a long time. Yeah, so there I was working on this project to set up a Peace Studies Institute at the University of London, and I used to commute every day from Islington down to Bloomsbury, and basically I was in touch with philosophers, teachers, educators all over the world. I travelled to about 30 countries worldwide, did study tours, kept all the notes, the interviews, I got all the old tapes, I went all around America. I also went to Russia, you see. That was a real privilege. I was in Russia in 1990 at a conference on peace. Yes, it was extraordinary in those days. I mean, I landed in Moscow and met all these incredible people. They were intellectuals of a calibre that you would recognise. These were genius people. Yes, like some of the people Dominic Cummings probably met, they're still around. These Russians are very clever. Yes, it's all gone a bit sinister since then. You see, I was there right at the end of Gorbachev when there was this vision of hope. Do you remember perestroika and glasnost, this hope? That's right, openness. Yes, glasnost. Yes, you remember that. Yes, it's like our old uncle. and look what happened. It deteriorated in sort of Russia being taken over by the oligarchs and selling off all the resources and these extremely wealthy people coming. And and loads of them have moved to London. I mean, that's not very patriotic. Yeah, and I know, I think you should give that money back, Boris. The Conservatives of One Nation variety, we don't need Russian oligarchs funding us. No, please give it back. It's ridiculous. Make a stand, And that's right. So there I set up my Institute of Peace Studies, and it's still going. Yeah. It's now based, it's kind of based in the cybersphere. It's partly here. The headquarters are here in France. That's right, and I've travelled a lot. I've been back to abroad many times, and it was in a castle in Scotland for 7 years, actually, and I'm going to come on to talk about that, in fact, because That's right. So my institute specialises in, let's just explain this, peace studies. That's right, that's conflict resolution, mediation, resolving conflict, preventing conflict, all that sort of hard-edged conflict analysis stuff that John Burton founded. You've not heard of him. Okay, well, he was an Australian diplomat, Boris, very, very good man. Yeah, he helped set up the UN. He was there at the founding conference in San Francisco. Yes, it's called International Relations. My friends at the LSE Department of International Relations, they were on that's right, the committee that appointed me to my post. And international relations is, it's a very important subject. Yes, you can actually do degrees in it. One of the things that we're that's right, important in international relations theory is preventing conflict. Yes, you see, we take the old-fashioned view, as did Alfred Zimmern and other great pioneers of international relations. That's right. That it's, like winning wars, okay, we have a great army, but the cleverest politician is the one that prevents them happening. That was the old samurai position. Yeah, the Japanese are very clever too. Yes, I like them. They know that the best samurai warrior never unsheaths his sword, because he resolves the conflict by diplomacy, it's called. Do you remember that thing? Diplomacy, yes. Yes, that's right. We need to reactivate diplomacy in the Foreign Office. And by the way, no, I agree with you. It was terrible that the Labour chap sold off all the library of the Foreign Office. I couldn't believe it. Try and get it back, There's years of accumulated wisdom. When I was have you been to Gibraltar, Boris? Yeah, I was in Gibraltar. And I was in love with the fact that the library in Gibraltar was donated. That's right. When the French and Spanish fleets were bombarding Gibraltar, trying to capture it, for some years it held out. That was an incredible thing. And so at the end of the war, Pitt said to the Gibraltar people, "What do you want as a present?" And they said, "We want a library, because if we're ever holed up here again for decades, we need some good books." So that's right. The library's still there. Yeah, I mean, now that, you see, shows the importance of culture and learning. They didn't say we want, more pretty dresses for our women. No, we want a library. That's right. Well, and Gibraltar, that's a sad story, because they don't really want Brexit either. In fact, they're dead against. No, please just listen to the people of Gibraltar. They're very intelligent people. They know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Look, don't worry. It's all private. I'm just trying to explain it how it is. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're in a sort of place of being open to thought. I mean, it is Christmas Eve here, and we are expecting the rebirth of the Christ child and all that. So it's a good time to have a chat, isn't it? Yeah. No, I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. So look, Boris, what I want to talk to you briefly about is my experience of Scotland, you see. I've been very fortunate to have lived in many countries. I've travelled all over the world, 35 countries and counting I've spent times in. What's my favourite? Well, gosh, I don't think I could say really. The kingdom of God. I always say to friends if they ask me, do you work for intelligence? I say, yes, I'm an intelligence agent for the kingdom of God. Yeah, it's a good line, isn't it? And then I say, well, it's not quite come yet. We're working on it. That's right. No, I won't work for an intelligence agent of any country. Sorry about that. No, because I'm what they call an idealist. You see, it's a certain tradition in international relations. We want to build a world of peace and justice and brotherhood and fraternity and all that, non-violently and through education. That's right. Well, it's very simple. If all our schools were top-notch worldwide, if all teachers were highly trained and qualified, if all academics were... Yeah, that's right. They should be a bit more polymathic, At the moment, they're just die-hard trench warfare artists who do their ologies and isms as if it's, the last Rorke's drift stand. No, that's right. So please, we need to encourage more joined-up thinking. And now that's my problem with the whole Brexit thing. Yeah. So look... I'm one of those types. I was born in Canada, actually, so I have, like you, you were born in New York. Yeah, we're both North Americans, Boris. Let's just accept that fact and move on, right? So I was born in Canada, right? That was the bit that was loyal to Britain. Yeah, when those revolutionaries went crazy and started arming, the Canadians thought, this is bonkers, what are they doing, Yeah. No, there's a whole Canadian angle on the American Revolution that is... explains quite a lot, actually. So yes, I was born there, and then I went to live in Calgary when I was in my early 20s, and stayed with some amazing Scottish people. Yeah, their son used to come back to Scotland to compete in the Pibroch. This is the bagpipe performances, and they were incredibly Scottish, you know. And I discovered that the Scots in Canada go back a long way. The Canadians love the Scots. Yeah, in Alberta and elsewhere, the Scots really were there. I nursed soldiers in the Canadian Army who'd fought in World War One, including some really amazing Scots guys. And they said to me, Thomas, you know, go back and find what caused World War One and make sure you stop World War Three. That's right. So yes, I you know, to really get to know what the Scots are like, I had to go to Canada. It's strange, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. And yes, that's right. And recently I was in Inverary Castle, well, a while ago. Inverary Castle, got a book on the Glencoe massacres. Yeah, do you remember them? That was terrible. That was William, that's right, William and Mary. They went mad. I mean, it's unbelievable that the Privy Council actually ordered this massacre using these you know, rival clans to decimate and destroy people in their own beds. It was shocking, and it was all covered up. Anyway, some of the people that escaped from that massacre eventually made it to Canada and lived to tell the tale, and ended up becoming friendly and intermarrying with the native Canadian Indian tribes. Yeah, and well, you see, as a historian, I do believe in Dharma. You see, Dharma, which is eternal truth. Anyway, look, I'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah, Indian philosophy is not your strong point, is it, Boris? No, no. Well, you know as a classicist that Indian philosophers even made it to Athens, didn't they, in Alexandria? That's right, I can recommend a good reading list on classical tradition. In fact, Pyrrho of Elis, who founded... That's right, you've heard of Pyrrho, right? Pyrrho founded skepticism and influenced Cicero and the whole academic skeptical tradition, yeah, that we both love. Well, he actually went to India with Alexander the Great's army and met Jains, can you believe it? And these Jains taught him the relativism of all knowledge. Yes, yes. They call it Anikant and okay, now I'll hold whilst you, yeah. He's just had a call on another line. Well, no, thanks so much for getting back to me. Oh, you told him he'd have to wait. Well, that's very kind, Boris. Thank you so yeah, no, it's an interesting conversation, isn't it? And it's long overdue. Yeah, I'm sure that Macron will wait. Yeah, the French president. Yeah, he's got some troubles of his own, but he's fundamentally a good bloke. Yeah. Now, I know you didn't mean to be discourteous when you put your feet on the table, but you've got to admit it doesn't look very good in the photos, Boris, does it? And no, that's right. And the only kind of people it'll appeal to are the kind of thugs we don't want backing us anyway, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. So look, okay, well, thanks a lot. Just we'll keep Macron hanging. Let me just say the following. So I'd always loved Scotland. It was kind of a romantic dream, you know, typical. I grew up in Brighton when we came back from Canada. And yeah, I love the South Coast, Sussex, yeah, Kemp Town, yeah, Lewis Crescent, all that stuff. Yeah, that was my happy hunting ground. My mum worked at the University of Sussex and taught. And I know Brighton like the back of my hand. Yeah, it's my other home, really. And then my daughters still live there, 2 of them. Yeah, no. So anyway, Scotland was this romantic place. I used to go on holiday to go camping. I'd go up from Euston Station, like on the Hogwarts Express. Mum would put me on a train. And I was with a camping group called Forest School Camps, and we discovered the Isle of Arran. Now, to me, the Isle of Arran was like the Isle of Avalon, paradise place. And that's right, it's the first time I ever drank beer and yeah, experienced that interesting change of consciousness. And I think it's the first time I ever kissed a girl, actually, was on camp on the Isle of Arran. So to me, Scotland was this paradise place. And it never occurred to me that the Scots' narrative of history would be very different to ours. I just thought, well, we're all part of the United Kingdom, we all love each other, let's get on and change the world, yeah. Well, anyway, that all changed when I went to live in Scotland, you see. For a long story yeah, that's right, yeah, I got very interested in, okay, so my work in the multicultural sector, that's right, I educated people, I taught, I set up a mediation service dealing with multicultural conflict resolution. That's right, it was called the Multi-Faith and Multicultural Mediation Service, and yeah, I set it up in '96. I went to a conference at the Vatican, which was amazing. You know, I was in the College of Cardinals. Actually, you're not allowed in there unless you're a cardinal normally, but Pope John Paul allowed us in, and yeah, he was as close to me as, you know, the camera virtually. It was camera. No, did I say camera? No, I meant the wall. Sorry, it's close as the wall, and. Yeah, and so that mediation service, so that led me to take on lots of conflicts and to try and resolve them. And I was approached by the Druid community of Britain. Yeah, Druid. Do you remember that? Druid? Yes, no, that's right. Druid, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was just in comics and TV as well. But no, I was amazed. There was a Druid Council of Britain. I didn't know about that. No, and nor did you, no. No, nobody talks about it. It's an oral tradition that's come down in the Celtic traditions of Britain. That's right, it's older than the English, you see. When the Anglo-Saxons arrived, there was... Yeah, the Celts were here, the Britons. That's right, they're the guys that opposed Caesar. Yes, yes. They didn't want Caesar settling here. Yeah, to them, Caesar was a warlord. Yes, fine. As a classicist, you know, you can be either for or against Caesar, but I'm talking as a philosopher of peace. And you see, the thing about Caesar was he was fundamentally a military type. He was a general, you know, a warlord. He slaughtered thousands, and actually they think 3 million Gauls, including loads of Druids, when he conquered France or Gaul. And he would have done the same in Britain had he invaded. Yeah, no, he was a tough cookie, as they say. I mean, yes, of course he was clever. I'm not saying he wasn't clever. No. But Cicero was cleverer, and he was more moral, you see. And I'm with Cicero in the Republic because... Well, their position was with Numa Pompilius, yeah, who's my hero among the kings. Yeah, Numa was the second king of Rome. And, yeah, of course, like, yeah, you've been to his, you know, there's that wonderful fountain in Rome that they show where Egeria, his muse consort, used to inspire him. That's right, yes, he was a secret agent working for the kingdom of God too, you see, Numa Pompilius, yeah. Yeah, but you see, Numa's point was that Rome had been too military. You know the story, and that her military, you know, the cadre of military qualities that had been cultivated by the first king, Romulus, needed to be balanced by the next king, which was the purpose of religion. And that's why Numa invented the Roman calendar. He put in all the feast days. That's right, all gods and goddesses. I mean, yeah, every Roman loves a Venus. They all love their statues and dances and festivals. That's right, every day in the Roman calendar was some kind of god or goddess. It's just like in India today, I've just got back. Yeah, you see, that's the real purpose of life, as Numa Pompilius said, is pietas. That's right, piety. Yeah, correct. Absolutely, you put it brilliantly. Yeah, of course, we should be cultivating pietas, which is true humility and piety before the gods. That's right. Yeah, and that's what Numa knew, and that's what Cicero knew, and you can't do that through warfare. Warfare is a last resort you do when some nutters try and attack you. You don't go off conquering and being a nutter in turn. No, you pursue the path of piety and education. Yeah, you can send out colonies and educate people. You can teach them Latin or English or whatever, you know, try and civilize them. Yeah, but always with humility. You should never forget that. That's right, we walk on the shoulders of giants, as Newton said, yeah. And so the Etruscans actually made Rome. I mean, old Numa wasn't even Roman. He was a Sabine, as you know. You see, this is the paradox. It's usually the other that becomes, you know, the accepted one. Yeah. I mean, there is no real... That's right, purity of blood, this thing the Spanish had. It doesn't exist. We're all partly Jewish, Moorish, you know, Chinese. We're all a mixture, aren't we? And that's just our human individual life, if you look at reincarnation. Yes. Well, there's a whole theory about that, past life regression. Yeah, Plato, absolutely. You've read The Republic, right? Reread it, Boris, please. Whilst you're Prime Minister, you have a duty. Reread The Republic and skip to the last few pages, the myth of Ur. That explains everything in a metaphysical perspective. Yeah, metaphysics, right? That's the science of first causes and ultimate truth. Yeah, and that's what I'm speaking about. Metaphysics. So reread the last pages of The Republic. You'll learn all about. That's right. You'll learn all about the reincarnation process and yeah. So what we do in our lives is yeah. determines what we do in the next life. So that's why I'm ringing, Boris. I want to up your game, you see, because it's been given to me certain duties. Yeah, going back to Druids. Anyway, I discovered this council. I was invited onto it. I had to mediate disputes between the council and the English heritage. Yeah, the absurdity English heritage controlling these stones called Stonehenge, which actually were there probably about 3,000 years before the English ever arrived on the island. Yeah, it should be called British heritage or something. But anyway, so, yeah, and that led me to really study and get deeply into the Druid thing. And I'd already got into that through my respect for John Dee, who was a Druid to Queen Elizabeth I. And yeah, but I just didn't know there were any living ones. So when I met them, I was totally in love and in awe. And yeah, I used to go to Stonehenge and help with their peace work. And yeah, I found them great party people, actually. You'd like the Druids. They're really clever. And they do a lot of deep stuff. One of my friends who got me into all that, Douglas Lyne, he was in the Battle of El Alamein. He sent me to Monte Cassino, because he was also at the Battle of Monte Cassino. Yeah, you know, that was a terrible battle, Boris. And you know, the Allied Air Force, we bombed the whole of the monastery on the top of the hill. I mean, without warning, having sworn to the abbot that it would be respected as a neutral place. We weren't supposed to go anywhere near it. And we made a false claim that German snipers were hiding in the upper windows, which was a lie. Yeah, shocking, isn't it, that people lie in politics? Yeah. And on the basis of that lie, we then obliterated it on 2 evening raids. The entire of this precious monastery was blown apart. Now, the only good news is that a German officer who had obviously a sixth sense, he thought the Allies wouldn't stick to their word, so he'd arranged to have the contents of the precious library shipped out. Yes, and it all went to Rome for the rest of the war and was saved. Yes, I want to make a movie about that because that's such an interesting story. Yes, and I know it was your grandfather, wasn't it, who wrote about the Monte Cassino Abbey and the library there. Well, I spent time studying that library because, that's right, Douglas Lyne, yeah, he got me, I mean, he died actually, but then in homage to his work, I went off to spend time in the library. And I discovered many mysteries there. Yeah. Have you spent time there? No, you've been too busy doing politics, eh? I'm writing articles for newspapers, yeah. Now, I've been working behind the scenes. I don't bother with all that stuff. People can write articles about me, you know, if they want, but normally I'm just completely off the radar. Nobody's ever heard of me. And that's deliberate, you know, yeah. We have to do our work like you know, from the shadow. Yeah, the word Celt, actually, it means concealed or hidden. Yeah, I'm part Irish, and I've got that Celtic streak in me, which is quite strong. Yes, I'm also a poet and a bard. So anyway, look, to cut a long story short, here I am in Scotland. I end up living in a castle, a bit like Hogwarts, right? I was given it through some miraculous karmic events to do with the Druids of Britain, and I lived there for 7 years, and I absolutely adored it there. Yeah, it was a bit bloody cold. You know what Scotland's like in the winter, right? Well, yeah, I didn't know it rained most of the year round, actually. In fact, I timed it one year. It only didn't rain 3 days. In the entire, I'm not kidding. 3 days out of 365 were rain-free. Yeah, I was in Argyll. I was in a place called Loch Goil, which should be called, actually, it means Loch Boyle, because the water's always turbulent because of the rain coming down. Yeah, we had rain coming inside the castle. I've read the Queen has the same problem at Balmoral. Yeah. I've not been to Balmoral. I passed it, but I wasn't invited in. Yeah, you've been. Well, I've heard she's got buckets in all the rooms because of the Scottish rain. And yes, it's like that last scene in the great James Bond movie when they end up in the castle. Yes, mine was pretty remote too. It's a shame you never came to visit me. You know, we could have had this chat earlier and solved a lot of problems. But no, so what I'm fascinated by, Boris, is your ancestor.